Let's talk about something that can truly transform how we support our children's learning. As parents and educators, we've all been in that moment where we finally get a label that seems to explain everything. You're told your child is a visual learner, and you feel this wave of relief. You think, okay, now I have the key. I know how to help them. But what if that label, while so well-intentioned, isn't telling us the whole story? What if focusing so much on that one idea is unintentionally keeping us from seeing the bigger, more exciting picture of how our kids' amazing brains really work? The idea of learning styles feels so right, but it's one of the most persistent myths in education, and neuroscience shows us why. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore what's really happening inside your child's brain and how we can use real evidence-based strategies to help them truly thrive. We all know the terms visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. This is often called the VARK model. And the theory is that every child learns best through one dominant sense. Visual learners need charts and pictures. Auditory learners need to listen to lectures. And kinesthetic learners need to be hands-on, moving and building things. It makes a certain kind of simple sense, doesn't it? When a child is struggling, it's comforting to have a clear reason. We tell ourselves she's not struggling with a concept. She's just a kinesthetic learner who needs more hands-on activities. It gives us a sense of control and a clear path forward. This isn't just a fringe idea. It's incredibly widespread. Studies have shown that a huge percentage of teachers, close to 90% in some cases, believe in matching their teaching to a student's supposed learning style. It's an idea that has been sold to us as science for decades. But the problem is, it's what neuroscientists call neuromyth. So, let's just say it directly. The idea that your child learns better when you only teach to one specific style is a myth. For decades, researchers have tested this idea, often called the meshing hypothesis, and the conclusion is overwhelming. There is no credible evidence that it works. Study after study has tried to prove it. They'll take a group of people who say they're visual learners and another group of auditory learners. They teach everyone using both visual and auditory methods and then test them. If the theory were true, visual learners would score better when taught visually, and auditory learners would when taught with audio. But that's not what the research finds. A visual learner is just as likely to succeed with an auditory lesson. What these labels really identify isn't a style, but a preference. Your child might prefer watching a video over reading a book, just like they might prefer pizza over broccoli. But that preference doesn't mean it is the most effective way for them to learn. In fact, sometimes being challenged with a non-preferred method can force them to engage more deeply with the material and learn it even better. If we aren't wired for a single learning style, then how do our brains actually learn? The truth is so much more fascinating, and it comes down to a concept called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's incredible lifelong ability to physically change and adapt in response to every new experience. Think of your child's brain not as a fixed map, but as a living, dynamic network of connections that is constantly being resculpted. Every time they learn something new, they're physically forging and strengthening pathways between brain cells. Learning doesn't happen in just one part of the brain. It's a team effort. When your child learns about a dog, the visual cortex processes its looks. The auditory cortex processes its bark, and other areas remember the feeling of its fur. The more senses you involve, the more parts of the brain light up and work together. This brings us to the most important takeaway. The brain learns best when it's stimulated in multiple ways at once. This is what educators call multimodal learning. Think of building a memory like weaving a rope. A single strand is weak. But if your child sees a concept, visual, hears about it, auditory, and acts it out, kinesthetic, you're weaving multiple strands together. You create a thick, strong memory that is easy to retrieve later on. You might be thinking, okay, maybe it's not proven, but what's the harm? But the learning styles myth isn't just ineffective. It can have unintended consequences for a child's confidence and growth. First, it can promote a fixed mindset. When we label a child as a visual learner, we're unintentionally putting them in a box. The child might start to believe, I can't be good at listening because I'm a visual learner. This can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, where instead of embracing a challenge, they may give up if it doesn't fit their perceived style. Second, these labels can create an unconscious bias. Studies have found that parents and teachers sometimes judge children described as visual learners as more intelligent than those labeled hands-on learners. This can lead to lower expectations, which can have a huge impact on a child's journey. Finally, focusing on this myth just wastes time and energy that could be spent on the strategies that neuroscience shows us really work. The good news is there are plenty of simple, intentional ways to support our kids. The solution is to stop trying to match the teaching method to the child and instead match it to the content. Then we layer as many modes as possible on top of that. Think about it. You can't learn birdsong from a picture. You need to hear it. And you can't learn geometry without seeing shapes. You need to see it. The best way to teach something is determined by the topic itself. The real solution is to embrace multimodal learning. Here are some strategies that can help create an environment where all children can thrive. 1. For learning maths. If your child is learning fractions, don't just use a pie chart. Visual. Get a piece of fruit or a pizza and have them physically cut into halves and quarters. Kinesthetic. As they do it, have them explain what they're doing out loud. Auditory. Then have them write down the fractions. Writing. You've just used 4 different modes to build a strong, interconnected memory of one concept. 2. For learning to read. Reading is visual, but it can be so much more. When you read together, talk about the pictures. Use different voices for the characters. Auditory. Have your child act out a part of the story. Kinesthetic. Afterwards, ask them to draw their favorite scene and tell you about their drawing. This combines visual, kinesthetic, and auditory pathways to make reading a rich, full brain experience. 3. For learning science, study a butterfly's life cycle. Go beyond the diagram in the book. Watch a time-lapse video online. Visual. Go outside to see if you can find any caterpillars. Kinesthetic, visual. Make the different stages out of clay. Kinesthetic. Then have your child present their project to the family explaining each stage. Auditory. The goal is simple: to create a rich, layered, sensory adventure for the brain. Let's stop trying to put our kids in a box. They don't have one learning style. They have a brain with limitless potential, a brain that's designed to learn in every way at once. They are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners all at the same time. By shifting our perspective and embracing a multimodal approach, we're not just teaching them facts, we're helping them build a stronger, more flexible, and more resilient brain. We're giving them the tools to become confident, lifelong learners. Have you ever been given a learning style label for your child? I'd love to hear your experiences. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and let's continue creating supportive, inclusive learning spaces together. Subscribe for more content, follow us on Patreon for more support and resources, and check out our Digi store for mindful apparel.